You need any coffee or anything? Fueled up?
Rowan, I think, was mad that I dropped a line about Red Rooster.
Are you drinking Chantel coffee this morning?
No. All right, are we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling, so good to go?
Go.
Start.
What's up?
Hell.
All right, we're doing another podcast.
This is episode 3.
Right, because nobody thought we did episode 2. Because I almost had the same outfit on. So I wore a different black sweatshirt and a different jacket and a different hat. And I changed my underwear just in case people were wondering.
Yeah. Nah. I think you have enough hats to wear a different hat every episode to help distinguish.
Some of them are pretty bad. But yeah, probably. Maybe I'll do that. As it's released the Kragan of my hat collection. I'm getting ready to get some new ones. I talked to one of my hat people the other day. I got a few different people that make hats for me. And I was like, I want to get some new ones for the year to get everybody pumped up.
Yeah, you really do that. More than any other business I've ever seen or business owner, you make cool swag. It's not just like generic swag, but you make like custom different types of things, like cork brim, denim hats, like all sorts of
all
stuff.
Accidental. It's straight up.
And then I think the big accident is that you usually give it all away. Like you're not trying to sell it or anything.
Yeah. I probably need to start claiming it as advertisement for my taxes, because I think you can write advertisement off a little bit better than bad debt or whatever. So that's a good question for my accountant, but if I can ever get a hold of them. No, the swag thing has been hilarious because, well, even going back before the swag, just a hair, when me and Abel decided to start Omnibuild, one, we didn't know what we were going to call it, so we were going to name it Matt and Abel or Abel's Construction, because it sounds cool, like we're able to do stuff, and just didn't even know, and honestly, like, didn't really care, because we're just like, let's just think of a name so we can keep moving. I never really think too much about those things, like coin phrases or logos or names, personally, when it comes to myself, but I don't know how other people think about it. I think they put a lot of energy into it, maybe. Was a part of making a mission statement the other day, and it was like a whole situation of like breakout groups and putting words together and stuff. And it was kind of a cool process. I enjoyed it, and I thought the mission statement was good afterwards. But we were sitting at a bonfire at my buddy Chris's, and I was like, man, I need to think of a name for my company. And this dude, John Verbalsa, I'll remember his name next time and drop it, but he's pretty cool, because you might want to follow him on Instagram. He's traveling the entire world on a sailboat and living out of it, like Antarctica right now.
Wow.
Yeah, like not sailing through the Caribbean, like getting a suntan, like eating seals and penguins probably and stuff. Like he's not really doing that, but he's deep, and but he's a pretty interesting guy, and I wouldn't say he's the most interesting man in the world, but he's pretty darn close. He was sitting at the bonfire, and I was like, I gotta think of a company name, and he's like, well, what are you gonna do? And I was like, we're gonna do everything. I mean, electrical, it'd be cool to incorporate some plumbing. And this is before we even knew we were gonna be Class A contractors. We thought we'd just be like handyman type thing. He's like, all right. Yeah, I'll think about it. And then later on, he's like, I think you should call it Omni, because Omni kind of means you everything. And I was like, I've never even really thought of that word in this context, or maybe even my entire life. I don't know. And so he explained, and I was like, that's kind of cool. And he's like, you can call it Omnibuild. And I was like, that's pretty darn cool, man. I like that. It sounds good. I'll see if it's taken. And it wasn't. So Abel's like, yeah, I don't care. whatever you want to call it. So I was like, oh, that's easy. It's always easy like that. And then we had a friend that, that's how we kind of did it in the beginning was we just said, hey, do you know how to like make drawings? Like, can you draw us a logo? That's construction. And so he's like, yeah, I can do that. So he drew us a logo and it was kind of cool. It was like red and black and had like different tools and like a saw blade and stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, that's hardcore. That's cool. And he's like, yeah, it looks good. And I he gave it to a guy that was going to print a t-shirt for us or something. And he's like, I ran that logo and because I do it every time, and it's like a radical, gnarly group that like it's their logo, pretty much exact. And I was like, oh, like radical, how bad? He's like, real bad. I was like, oh, okay, let's not do that. So then I went home and Googled construction logos and bought the Omnibuild logo on some website that was probably I don't even know for $25.
Wow.
And that's how we got the logo. And it's become kind of like a staple in the community,
For sure.
uh, of like a lot of people want a hat or a shirt or whatever, and it's cool. I mean, I think it's great advertisement. If people think it's a cool thing to be a part of, I like giving it away. Like, we went to the high school to do the job fair. And because a lot of the high school kids, they're like, I want a hat or sweatshirt or whatever. So we went to the job fair, and the job fair is cool. I think that I haven't thought about the job fair clear enough before until I kind of like went a few times and stepped outside of it and didn't go. And then I think I realized how important it actually is. Because I think a lot of people sit there and wait for the kids to come up and ask, and they might be nervous or intimidated, or they might get a free pen or pencil. But I realize that that's like a really good opportunity to pull a kid in and say, you can like have a company like mine, or you could work for me and be a foreman in 5 to 10 years, or maybe even take over the company one day. Who the hell knows? But like make the space for them to get intrigued and feel comfortable. And so we like thought through that. And so Haley, it was Haley, I think Courtney, a few of us, Christy, I don't even know who. So if I left you out, sorry. And you'll be fine. But we created, or they created, a list of questions, and you pick a random number, and then we ask you that question. And if you answer right, you can get a t-shirt, hat, bag, sticker, and it was a blast. And so like the kids came up and picked a number. It was a construction question that was pretty easy, but it was funny because it's real easy to me, but then you realize how little some people know about some of this stuff, which is no problem. They just haven't had exposure yet. But they got excited. They were laughing. They were trying to figure it out. Their friends were like giving them hints, and the booth got very popular pretty quick. And there was swag going sick everywhere, just flying, and kids were screaming, and some kids were even like trying to come back and do it again. And I was like, you got one time, bro. Like you can't be taking all this. We got to spread the love. And and so what it did was it got people engaged, like, what do you guys actually do? And I realized when somebody asked that question, like they just kind of scroll past and like, I don't, but then when you engage them and give them this fun thing, it kind of breaks the ice and it opens up the conversation. And it was actually really successful. Going back to the swag piece, I like giving it away because it feels good. I it's not like I get off on like seeing it and think it's like whatever. I like when people enjoy receiving it. It kind of makes me happy. I'm like, sweet. They think it's cool and they like it, and it's awesome. It's a good feeling,
It
you
is
know.
cool.
Yeah. It's very basic, but, like, I've even have kids that are like, "Dude, we wanna, like, create a product line for you and, like, take it public and, like, sell it in DC," and I'm like, "I don't know if it'll sell in DC because nobody knows what it is. Maybe it's just a simple circle with a hammer and a wrench, but I think here it means something. Up there it might not. Maybe it does. I don't know. I'm not putting a lot of energy into what I pick. I pretty much say, "Hey, I want some new stuff," and he sends me some, and I just say, this, and this," and, and then it works out, but I get a lot more out of it. I remember years ago, and, I talk about my counselor a lot, but she would say this is part of my people pleasing, but I think it's just a part of, like, who I am, and 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 maybe it is people pleasing, but if it is, I'm sorry, it is what it is. Like, I'm not really changing it. But and if I don't know if people please is good or bad. I guess it could be bad and good. Yeah, I guess it's probably both, just like a lot of things. But years ago, I got this hatchet. It was like handmade, super cool. And I got it in a weird way that I didn't have to pay really what it was worth. I kind of work traded for it. I was helping somebody clean out a building. And I was like, "Man, this thing is so freaking cool." And I was like, "Yeah." And I showed this guy who's a woodworker who appreciates that stuff, and the handle was cool, and he's like, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." He's like, he's looking at it, studying it, and asked me all sorts of questions I had no answers to. And I was like, "You should keep it." And he's like, "Oh man, I can't keep it. This thing's worth a lot of money, and somebody put a lot of time." And I was like, "No, I'm serious. Like, you appreciate a lot more than me, and I don't have a lot invested in it. And it doesn't even really matter how much I have invested in it. I want to give it to you because you you'll probably look at it like however many times you do in a year, and I might not ever look at it again when I put it away in my safe or something." And I don't know if that's totally true or not, but something about doing that, like, felt good for me, and I don't even talk to that guy anymore, so I didn't really, and it's nothing, no problem. It's not like I don't like him or he doesn't like me. It's just I didn't really do it for him. I mean, I think there's a part of it that is, but I think a lot of it is I felt good about doing it for me, and I wasn't trying to get anything from him. I think I was just like, I don't need this. I got a hatchet that I actually use when I work in the woods. I don't need a fancy hatchet that I put on a shelf and collects dust, and I don't even know what the hell it is, and he knew clearly what it was, so he needed it more than I did. But I think throughout the years, I've done a lot of that, you know? I worked with a guy for a very long time. This was a while ago. This was maybe 10 years ago, and he was from Guatemala, and, he wanted to become a citizen, and he's a great guy. Um, Hard worker, super nice, and, I remember the day that I had an old pickup truck that I was gonna sell for, like, 2 or 3 grand. I almost hate selling things at times, and it's not that I have so much money I don't need to sell it or anything like that. It's just it's a pain in the ass to sell stuff sometimes. It's like you gotta meet somebody, you gotta talk about it, you gotta get nickeled and dimed. If it's a penny, then can we possibly cut the penny in half? No. They don't even make pennies anymore, so, like, we ain't cutting it in half. But the guy got his citizenship, and, he came up to me and he's like, "Senor, I'm a citizen." And I was like, "Oh, man." I was like, "Congratulations." And he went through the whole process, and he's said, "I'm gonna start my own business." And I said, "That's awesome." I said, Would you still work for me and stuff?" And, "Hey, oh, yeah, yeah." And we had a really good talk, and, like, I know his kids and stuff, and, um, I left, and then I turned back around, and I knew I had that truck that I was getting ready to sell, and I was like, if I give this truck to this guy right now, yeah, I'm gonna lose this 2 or 3 grand that I can get out of it, but I'm gonna gain so much more. Like, I'm gonna feel good about helping this guy who just got a citizenship that could possibly have been one of the hardest things that he's ever had to go through. I have no clue. I don't know what it took, but I know it took a long time. I had no part in it, but I know that it was a stressful thing for him, and like he's just so happy that he got it, and now he wants to start his own company because he can do it legitimately and doesn't have to work for somebody. I can give him this truck, and it'll probably take him to that next level, and he'll be so happy that that's just gonna make me happy too. And I went over to him and I was like, "Hey man, I'm giving you this truck." And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh no, I was like, "I don't think you understand." I was like, "I'm literally this is your truck now. Like I have to go get a title, but it's not mine anymore, it's yours." And he's like tears in his eyes. He was so grateful and so happy about it that I gained a significant relationship for the rest of my career and possibly afterwards. And I don't expect him to do free work, but anytime I've ever asked him for anything, he's like, and sometimes that could be viewed as weird, like you're giving this so that he'll be whatever, or they'll owe you for life, and I don't even look at it that way. I've given a lot, and I do it with no expectation of return. But what's happened, like that truck that I gave maybe 10 years ago, our relationship is awesome. And I don't have I pay him for everything he does for me. I don't expect him to drop what he's doing for me, but he knows that I'm a solid person in his life, and I get that back. He's a solid person in my life. And I can rely on him, and I think it's kind of a cool thing. And I can't just go around giving everybody trucks and whatever, t-shirts and hats, because I'd run out of resources, but a lot of my resources I put back into the community like that, and I think for me, Rye said it the other night. She's like, you do a lot of good for people, and people see it and they respond well to it, and I think that's why you're successful. And I don't know how to explain how to do it, or if what I just said even makes sense, but it comes on so many different levels, man. It's like, we started this thing of paying employees when they have kids, and the majority of the company is dudes and guys and boys, and I don't know, I guess they're almost adults. We have some 17-year-olds that work here, so I don't know what they're considered. I guess teenagers. Um, we offer it to those guys too. When their wife has a baby, give them some paid time off, and that goes a long freaking way, man. It's like, wait, what? You're gonna pay me to stay home with my newborn baby for 2 weeks? And I was like, yeah. I mean, it's important time of your life. And it's little stuff like that where they're like, and to me, it's like, okay, it might cost me $1,500 that I could go and buy, I don't know, a new jacket and hat so that I can look different on the podcast. So people know it's another episode, or I can give it back and then see how happy it made that family. And that happiness leads to, and loyalty is a kind of a weird thing to say, but it is like that. It's like we're in a unit now. We're bonded in a different way. We got each other's back in a different type of way. Um, and I think I think it's kind of I think it's kind of a cool thing. And so the swag deal, I think it signifies you're connected to a thing that is kind of cool. Something like this, a little cool. Because it's just like Floyd.
Well, I mean, I think that the swag speaks for itself. You've done a lot of giveaways, and people are always jumping on those, and you just kind of walk around Floyd Fest handing them out to people, or you give them to the new employees, and then they're their significant others want them and their kids want them, and go to the high school and they're just lining up over and over again to try and get more. It is a local pride thing, but I think there is something emblematic about that logo. It's like a hieroglyph. It's got that blue collar representation of the simplicity. And even though it was a $20 logo, you could look at Nike's logo, and that's one of the most iconic logos in the world, and they paid $30 to some artist in Portland to make that.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't really put a price tag on what works. The same thing goes with your brand name, Omnibuild. When you heard it, you were like, yes, those yes moments in business are so helpful because you don't have to have a bunch of friction points.
Yeah.
And you can just kind of keep going, get it off your list, and now it's working for you instead of just banging your head against the wall, trying to come up with the perfect logo or rebranding like a lot of companies do because they think that their brand name or their brand design is going to help them stand out more, when it's really these interpersonal connections that you make when you hand out a hat to somebody in the community that then attracts them to that loyalty of family or community that is offered in that. When you like, oh, cool, I saw someone at the supermarket or the farmer's market wearing a hat, and I'm like, do they work for Omnibuild?
Maybe. They could. You could too.
It's just a cool thing that you do, and I do think that it would be interesting to see if we could pop them on the website and sell them every once in a while when you do these, because you do some really interesting designs that are custom, and everybody always wants a little piece of it. But we, they end up getting in the community anyways, but I think people outside of the community might be interested in it someday. So
if you want some swag, leave a comment and I might find you and give you some swag.
Oh yeah.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint. Tag
Not
some
really
friends.
a hint. That's a direct comment.
Comment on this post if you want some swag.
Yeah. And I want to be clear too, because like it's been so incremental. Like, I don't know. The swag thing is kind of crazy. And when I first started, I didn't have any money. We had a show that we had $100,000 in assets to start Omnibuild with our license when we first did it. And I mean, I'm not even kidding. On my list of assets, it was like 14 screwdrivers for $80. I mean, it took all that. We didn't own our houses. We didn't anything. And then like the week that we started, my truck engine blew up. And I had to take a loan out because I couldn't get a loan at the bank, which banks, you need to make it a little easier for some of us to get some money. Like it's tough. I mean, seriously, I'm in the process of like trying to increase a credit line right now. And I can't even believe how hard it is. It's going to be a big year, and the credit line is just a cushion. If we don't require money up front, we work and then we get paid for the work we've completed. And I'll get into that. But incremental process of growing this thing, I had to take a personal loan for $2,500 to get a new engine, which wasn't really a new engine. It was a refurbished engine. And there's this joke between me and Justin Miller. He drove that truck for like 8 years. And he'd be like, man, I could really use a new truck. And I was like, that truck has a new engine in it. And he's like, that new engine has over 150,000 miles on it. I was like, it's still new to me. And it's an ongoing joke. And I swear I see that truck every now and then. And I've been like, I should buy that back and like put it in my front yard on cinder blocks. And Rye's like, no. Because I found an old bulldozer in the woods, and I was like, I'm getting that bulldozer out of the woods. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to put it in the front yard. Oh, no. Well, we're not having a bulldozer in our front yard. We're not even an excavation company.
Your blood runs red, white, and blue, man.
I was like, it'd be so cool to like sit on it and drink coffee and wave to people driving by. And she's like, yeah, definitely not cool. So I saw the eyes and the look, and I was like, okay, she means business. Like, we're just not going to talk about the bulldozer ever again.
Just got to take a nice photo of it and then put that on the wall.
But the incremental process in the beginning was there was no money. we had to prove that to get our license. And then I remember our first T-shirts was through Express Mart, which is like the best gas station in the world. They have good food. They sell generators. And like they have like a home goods section now. Like you can get gas and buy a Stanley and a generator and get breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the gas station.
It's not only that though, like you can get that at other gas stations
Yeah.
and people will rave about Buc-ee's and all sorts of
Yeah.
other, but this is like the
No.
people there.
They say hi, they know who you are. I'm actually gonna see if Dustin at Express Mart has a banking division and start my banking there too.
Yeah. They are
But
friendly, very friendly.
super cool, super involved in the community. They do a lot for the community. They got a cool model going there. I like them a lot. Maybe I should drop some hats and T-shirts off to them. Probably should. Leave a comment and see what happens. But you know, the incremental I think that was the first T-shirt, and it was like had all these business names on back, and on the front corner it said Omnibuild. And I remember giving them all away. I don't even think I kept one for myself. Because that's just like how I roll. I don't know why. It's part of my reason I'm probably going to counseling. Uh, so I saw the power in gifting that shirt and was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I really like that. Like, all right, I see. All right, I'm like picking up what everybody's putting down. But in the beginning, I didn't have the money or resources to do that. And so like over time, I built that up, and that's kind of where it's at. Like, I just want to get clear on that because I don't think you should like take a loan out to like buy hats and give them away. I think it's the slow. I'm not like, I read this book one time and it said in the book, the slowest way is the fastest way. And it was like about this guy that was like trying to escape from prison, and he kept trying to escape through like the air vents, and it gets stuck and like it was just so stressful and bad. And then he ended up getting released naturally because he served his time, and it wasn't about being in prison, it was just about the learning process. I don't even think this guy went to prison. They just used it as like, hey, this kind of represents what my thought is. But he realized that sitting there going through the slow way and accepting that path was actually easier than trying to force it, you know. And I've listened to that story throughout my life, and I look back, and the first 5 years of my business was so fucking stressful. And there were times where I didn't know if I could make payments and pay bills, and I'd have to hustle up work and almost beg people to pay me. And and I was slowly putting money away to try to have a savings, and I'd look at my savings and be like, "Good gosh, there's like $150 in there. Like, is this ever gonna like be anything more than that?" And over the past 12, 13 years, it is. And I'm in a position where if I want to spend $2,000 on hats, I can. It has to be an educated decision. Um, but the what I get out of it is so much, you know. And so, you know, slowly over time, my hat order was 3 hats to 30 to 200 or whatever it is. You know, I don't even know, but it takes time to grow into that, and it has to be a thoughtful process.
So when you started Omnibuild, you mentioned you and Abel were talking about just doing odd jobs, handyman stuff, and mentioning some of that struggle during the first 5 years of business
Yeah.
to pay bills. What do you say to guys that are in that position, like looking at the prospect of growing their construction business to a successful point, like, but they're struggling in the moment to get to the day to day, and you know they might have it on their vision board of building multi-million-dollar projects, but it's like that seems, and maybe they want it faster, but it's frustrating because it's not coming as fast as they
Yeah.
want. Like
Yeah.
there's no way to leapfrog to success, but from your point of view and your experience, like what's like your word of wisdom to the guys that are starting out or
Yeah.
have been going for a while, maybe slower than they want to get to the next level in construction?
Much time do we got?
But
Yeah. It's only gonna take like 2 minutes. No, just kidding. Okay, that's a really good question. Um, I think I started a business. I first moved to Floyd in 2002, I think. Um, 2001, 2002, roughly in that zone. And I lived in Copper Hill initially, and I started a business um, with a partner. And so partnerships are dangerous. You have to be very careful because you're inviting somebody into your life that it's almost like a wife or a husband if you're a woman, or whatever. I guess there's a lot of different things nowadays. But I'm not gonna even go there, dude. I don't like political posts like on Facebook and Instagram because I don't even know what's real anymore. Like I read something and they're like, homeboy just did blah blah blah, and I'm like, that's terrible. And then like I get all emotional and like buy more ammunition and MREs and stuff because I think the world's gonna end. And then they're like, that was fake news. I'm like, dude, I'm not liking political posts anymore because I don't know what's real. So um partnerships are tricky because I think it's exciting in the moment and you're like, yeah, let's go. This is going to be great. And then a couple years later, you're like, oh my God, this sucks. Like we don't even really know each other and we're deep. We're deep, deep now. But I started a business when I first moved here. And red flags are important. I think everybody wants to believe in each other so much that you might not pay attention to a red flag because you want to believe in somebody's potential. And whether it's their potential or the potential of your relationship or the potential of the business you're talking about creating. But I think you really got to pay attention to those red flags because the more you push them down, the more those red flags pile up. And then it becomes like a gigantic pile of red flags. And you don't even remember the first one. But there's so many that all your anger, frustration, insanity, loneliness, whatever the hell you're dealing with is related to like so many flags. You don't even know what the hell you're coming or going anymore. And then you're having a situation with a partner where you're not actually talking about the issue that's really going on. You're talking about the last 14,000 issues, but it's coming out all wrong because it's a huge pile of shit that you can't shovel anymore. You need a loader and an excavator and an off-road dump truck and an approved site to dump it. It's gotten big. Maybe even a DEQ permit because there could be a bog turtle underneath that. But I had a partnership that failed. It was bad. And they had a drug problem, an alcohol problem, and I didn't really know. And I probably did, but like I should have paid more attention and it ruined our partnership. And I learned a lot about it. And right before that partnership ended, I borrowed $30,000 from my grandma, which I have never borrowed money from my family. Or maybe less. I don't it was a substantial money when I did it. And I felt terrible asking my grandma to do that. Um, but I was convinced to do it. And then our partnership failed and I left and I went it was tough for me. And there were a couple signs that led me um to that departure, which we can talk about later. Because I'm gonna circle back here, I promise. Um, and I ended up paying my grandmother back. Like that was the most important thing to me because I could have easily said, I lost my business and we're both screwed. But I was like, no, I'll stay screwed, but I'm gonna make you whole. And so I worked real hard and I paid my grandmother back all that. And felt good. and I think that's why I had a good relationship with her. Um, but I learned a lot, and one of the biggest things I learned was to not live outside of my means. And when I was in that business, we were going into debt and we were paying ourselves as much as we possibly could. Um, because you got money in there, like let's write ourselves a check. That's cool. Like my partner got a makeover. I was like, bro, what? I didn't know dudes even got makeovers. But okay, whatever. Like that's pretty weird. Um, but that's we had the taste of a little bit of money. It wasn't a lot. We were thousands, but before that we were hundreds. We were like have $100 bill and be like, oh man, this is big time. Like I could potentially retire. I mean, that's what it feels like when you hit hundreds. It's like wow. Thousands is like, oh yeah. Tens of thousands is like, holy crap. And then when you get into hundreds of thousands, you're like, wow. I don't know, but for me, that business broke me where I don't look at money the same. And I always feel like I'm about to go out of business in my mind. And so I conserve. And when I started with Abel, we paid each other as little as we could to survive. I think we paid each other like $12 an hour, but for 40 hours a week, maybe even 30. I don't even remember. We paid for our cell phone out of the company, which we had a simple plan, and we both had old broken down work trucks. Mine had a new engine though that we owed money on. Even though it was a 1988 four-speed, like terrible, like on many levels, it served its purpose, and and so we kept putting money incrementally into a savings account, taking it back and putting it in, taking it back, putting it in, but never lived outside of our means. And when we needed to buy something, I would always say to Abel, "Man, I really want this hammer," and it was like a $500 depleted uranium hammer that was like you hit the nail one time and it builds the whole house. And he's like, "Do you really need that hammer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." Like it's a good one. And he's like, "I got this hammer and it was like $10." I was like, "Yeah, you're probably right. I don't need the hammer." So that voice of reason for me was like really important. And a lot of it was able because he was really conservative. And one of the things that used to piss me off about him is he wouldn't like deposit his checks for like 4 months. And I'd be like, "Oh my God, dude, I just checked the bank account and somebody withdrew like 5 grand." And he's like, "Yeah, I deposited my checks for 4 months." I was like, "You're a jerk." And then I was like, that sounds so dumb. Like, whatever. He's like living off of like dare meat and whatever vegetables he can grow and eating beans and rice, and it doesn't matter, and it didn't matter because when we wrote that check we spent that money, and so that's another important thing of like keeping track of your however you manage your money, not what it says on your bank account, what you might have written 10 checks that day and you may look at your account and say, I got 100 grand, but you spent 45 of it in checks that haven't cleared yet. And so that was a learning lesson for me. But I think in the beginning it was incrementally taking our time, putting money away, not paying ourselves so much, being realistic about what we needed, making some mistakes, buying some things we probably didn't really need. And I do it a little more now because it's like the accidental dump truck. Yeah. Which is pretty darn cool. Um, but stuff like that. And like now that Abel's not here, I have to be a little more careful. And I have people in my life and it's interesting. I have a new kind of accounting division because working with Jody for so long, I never even really knew how to check my bank account. I never looked at the bank statements. I just trusted her to do what she did, and that was a great thing because I could look in there and be like, "Holy moly, like we just got all of our payments today, which looks like now we have a lot of money." But money's gonna be gone in a few weeks easily, because we got to pay bills and whatever. But now that there's been a transition in the accounting department, I have more access to the banking, which I'm probably gonna get revoked here soon because like I don't need to look at that. It's too stressful. Less is more in that world for me. Like as far as like less I know. Sure, I want a lot of money. So, but I'd rather not know the swings of it, and Deb and Courtney and soon to be Rye they have a way better feel. When I look in there and see a number and have a panic attack, Deb's like, it's fine. I'm like, how could you say that? And she's like, because I know how much money is coming in the next 3 days. And I don't. I mean, I have a generalized feeling of it to like get approving things, but I don't correlate everything together. And that's not my role. My role is like holding together all the other pieces, making sure that the checks are coming in, making sure people are satisfied and stuff. But I think as far as small business goes, I think it's super exciting in the first 5 years because you've made that shift to take the reins for your life and you're doing things and hopefully you're being honest and hopefully you're building a good company and whatever it is and thinking being thoughtful through the whole process, but keeping some self-restraint and not letting that excitement say, well, I need a new truck. I didn't buy a new truck until 8 years in. Everything was used and it got a little better over time, but I think I want to go back 1 second. The excitingness of starting your own company has a lot of fear, but I think that's normal. And if you don't have that, you're probably should try to get scared because like that fear is what kind of keeps you at bay to a degree. And it's what kept me at bay. And it's not great on the body. Being a small business owner is pretty stressful in those beginning years. And even now, I'm dealing with a whole new level of stress on different levels. But saving money and being thoughtful about what I do is what helps me get through those. So it's pretty incredible when you have a tough time in business and you can say, cool, for the past 5 years, I guess I've been saving for this, you know, um, and get through it. And I think after the 5 years, I want to come back to that for 1 second in a minute. But I think after 5 years, if you do somewhat of that model and you're proactive about saving and not overly paying yourself, being conscious of the purchases you're making and thinking through, do I really need this new truck or trailer or piece of equipment, um, that after that 5 years is when it starts to like calm down and you're like, oh, I've got $20,000 in my savings, which can go real quick in construction, if you have a problem. Um, but it feels more substantial and it feels like you can do a hat order and give them away more. You could do a Christmas bonus, different things like that. Which is a powerful thing, and but going back to saving and things like that, one of the things in the beginning of business is there's so much going on. And this is not just in the beginning because I'm just dealing with a situation right now. And this is 13, 14, 10. I don't know how many years actually right off the hand. I think it's 13 years in. I'm still dealing with problems. It's just part of the business. If you're not cut out for it, then don't do it because it's tough. Um, but I think in the beginning of business, when you're starting, you're so busy trying to get your business license in place, whatever that is, your company infrastructure, what you're actually doing, how you're going to do it, whether you're getting some financing help or not, that you're liable to make more mistakes in those first years, and hopefully they're smaller ones, but saving that money and not trying to push your mistakes onto other customers, because you say, okay, well, I made $100 mistake. I bought a black, I got a black toilet, and it was supposed to be white. And I just didn't see that it had a B in front of the code. It was a W, but I can't return it because it's custom. You could eat that $100, try and sell the toilet on Facebook or whatever, and just do the right thing and get the toilet because it's your mistake. Or you can let your mind get in the way and say, put pressure on a client of adding it in to the invoicing in a weird way, subconsciously. I worked 2 extra hours there this month to cover the cost, or pass it on to another client subconsciously or consciously. And I've never done that. I and I know people that have, and it catches up to you in the end, because you're starting to explain lies on top of lies, and it's a dangerous game. And if you keep a little bit of money on the side, you can handle your problems and move through them and turn them into learning experiences, as opposed to possible more guilt, which carrying guilt sucks. It makes you not want to go to Food Lion or anything like that, because you're like, I hope I don't see blah. And at least if you see blah, you can say, that really sucked, but I saved enough money over the time to deal with the issue. You don't really say that. It's better to just be like, you never even had an issue. They might not even know that you had an issue. And that's the way to keep customers happy. And in the beginning of business, we had those issues, but me and Abel had saved enough money to say, we got to deal with it. We booked a class for Omnibuild the other day and realized we couldn't do it. It was $1,200. It was a professor coming up from Roanoke to teach it, 2 nights. Realized we couldn't actually do it like the cruise. So we called the guy and said, hey man, we're sorry. We actually forgot to call him. And then called him we thought we were gonna give him 2 weeks notice, but then we ended up giving him like 48 hours notice because we forgot to call him. And his initial response was like pretty intense, very upset. He scheduled this with his family, with his work, whatever the heck he had to do. And now we canceled on him. And I talked to Courtney about it. And I said, well, we got to pay that guy, like straight up. And she's like, okay. And she paid him, and she goes, you wouldn't believe his response. He thought we'd probably just flake out and not pay. And when somebody sets aside that much time, we talked to this guy 6 months ago, made the plan, and then we kind of messed up on our calendars about remembering it and things like that. So we did remember it weeks in advance, but forgot to tell him that we couldn't do it anymore. But we paid that guy because we felt an obligation to follow through with our commitment, and we dropped the ball. And that dude's like singing our praises. So we took what could have been a freaking horrible situation and bad reputation starting stuff of this professor in Roanoke being like, Omnibuild can suck it, because they or whatever, to being like, they're actually awesome. I didn't teach a class, but they followed through with their word, and that's what he's like. He's like, dude, I do this and that, and like, how can we work together? So it opened up all sorts of new avenues. And so I think, keeping dealing with those issues, like I've got a big issue happening right now on a job. Was an honest mistake. It was, I don't know how much of the details I want to get into right now, but there's many different methods of building, and you have to pay attention. I told a guy in a job last Friday after the podcast, I went down and met with him. Or maybe, I don't remember what day it was. Maybe it was Monday. It was Monday. And I said, when you start a job, it's like playing a chess game. And when I step boots on the ground and I'm looking at how this house is going to face and the elevation coming out of the ground, I'm thinking about them driving to the front door and what that's gonna feel like. So your first move is kind of you thinking about your last move. And when you start framing this room, you need to be thinking about the kitchen faucet. He's like, "I don't get that." And I'm like, "Well, that kitchen faucet needs to land dead center on that window because that's an important piece to them." And if you don't think about all that from the beginning and you're off by 4 inches, which may not be a big deal when you're framing it, it is a big deal to the client. And when I and so it was one of those types of issues. And I'll tell you, when I hit that issue, I was kind of like, um, well, how can I turn the story around and make it their problem? And that's just real brutal honesty, you know, because that's the standard of the world. It's like, I got an insurance claim, and insurance first response is, we might not cover that. And I'm like, well, how about you say, let us look into it and we'll get back to you. That feels so much better than like, we're not sure if you have that insurance. I mean, that is like the worst thing to hear when you're dealing with an issue. And so luckily this issue on the job, I was able to have a few days to process. And so I knew about it. I was informed about it. And my initial mind was like, how is it their problem? And pretty quick, I was like, it's totally not their problem. They hired us because they trusted us to do the right thing and to build them what they want, which was rather complicated. And we let them down because we made a honest mistake. It was not anything malice. We tried to give them exactly what they wanted, but missed one little tiny piece that affects the project. And after reflecting on it, I realized that the shit rolls downhill, and I'm at the top of that pile, and so it does start with me and my management of everything. And so they came in for a meeting, which I was like super intense about. I hate getting an email on Friday or during the weekend. And I know it happens, and I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it's tough. I used to not open my email or text or phone calls on the weekend because I really want to dedicate it to my family. And the place I'm in my life, I unfortunately have to work a little bit on the weekends sometimes, and I try to manage it fairly well. But I had that meeting after the weekend. It was this week, and I had enough time to think it through, and that little bit of money that I had been saving for 13 years, which is done like this, it's about to do this again because I've got to fix a problem that is ours. And I went into that meeting and I don't know what they expected. And we sat down and I said, I'm just going to start off by saying, we made a mistake. It has nothing to do with other than you're upset with you, other than you're upset and that it's an inconvenience for you, and I'm gonna make it 100% right. I take full responsibility. I'm gonna fix it to the fullest extent, and it's gonna be a little bit of an inconvenience to you, but I will make it right 100%, and I apologize. And that changed the entire tone of the meeting because I don't know. I think they might have expected me to be like, well, actually, this leads to that, which led to this, which happened to this, and then I'm kind of not fully responsible. And that's just crappy. Then you got to carry that afterwards, like me. Like if I was to try to push that blame onto somebody, I'd be carrying that. And that's what makes me um, stress out, avoid people, probably go on a bender, crash my truck, fight somebody, not fight somebody, like turn into a wild animal and like leave the country. I mean, it gets pretty bad in my mind of like where I can go. So, I took the higher road. I had the resources that were been saved for a while that I'm going to do that. And it's absolutely the right thing to do. And whether they leave a good review or have good things to say about us afterwards or bad things, I would say that they would have good things to say. afterwards. It's for me at the end of the day. It does directly affect them, and it is in a way for them to do the right thing. But I cannot live with myself if I do something wrong and don't stand up to it and deal with it. Personally, it would be really hard for me. So, going back to starting a business and what's important and all that, and I'm probably way off topic and we can go back to it. It's about taking it incrementally and slow, and building reserves. That's what when we started our company, I couldn't even afford to buy a book from Barnes and Nobles. And I sat in the aisle in the construction area and there was literally a book, Construction for Dummies. It was a yellow book. And I don't really like reading. So I don't want my kids to listen to that though. Because they need to like reading right now in their life because they're in school. But I read that book and it's freaking hilarious because it was so hard for me to focus in Barnes and Nobles, reading a book. It's just brutal. And I remember one sentence from that book, and I say it all the time in my mind. Construction companies should have $100,000 prudent reserve. And I swear by the time I retire, I am try to have that prudent reserve because even if I move all my money out of my checking account into my prudent reserve account and it says 100, then we're good. I can retire. And I think that's a really important thing that stood out to me, that I have to have that for all the problems. And I don't, whatever your business is. I mean, honestly, I think it translates into everything, you know. And so now 13 years later, I pay myself a better wage. I have a nice work truck, but it is my business truck. It pays for my cell phone, and stuff like that. And so it feels good. And I built myself to it. And I think I value it a lot more, waiting and taking my time and those types of things. And, those people that we have the issue on the job, we're going to take care of that. And we're going to be able to do it and pay for it and not take a loan out at this point for it. And it's going to feel like the right thing to do. And I'm going to be able to go on and know that, we had a company meeting about it. And the company meeting is essentially slowing down just a hair, talking about your jobs more on our Wednesday meetings, what's going on, talking to the crews more, so that they understand what's going on. So it's a learning experience. It turns tragedy and guilt carrying into more of like, hey, okay, we went through a hard time. We can afford to fix it because we were smart, to now we can just learn about it. How do we not do this ever again? So this year's gearing up to be a really good one. We got some really cool stuff going on. I mean, some great projects. I'm pretty excited about it. We're currently trying to find a new project manager, a superintendent, stuff like that. So I'm the type of work is awesome. I met a guy yesterday, super long driveway, got way deep in there. He just called about a job, and he's a builder actually in Virginia Beach. And he said, man, I watched the podcast and it was so cool.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, I'm sorry you listened to it, because I always feel like it sounds really dumb and that it's not entertaining, but people have kind of come up to me here and there and have been like, that's kind of cool. I enjoyed it. I learned something from it. I got to know you more. I understand more about your company. I see that you wear the same outfit nonstop, stuff like
It's
that.
because you're giving all your other clothes away.
I know, man. It's funny. I don't even wear that much Omnibuild stuff. I probably should at least I wear hats sometimes. This one doesn't have a logo though.
Well, I appreciate sitting down with you, and I think that the people that spend time listening to this, it shows in the comments and it shows in the watch time.
Mhm.
We're on YouTube. We've already gotten like 400 hours in our first
Wow.
2 episodes. That's a lot of time.
I'm glad you think it is, because when I hear it, I'm like, "That's nothing," but I guess it sounds good.
I mean, well, if each episode's an hour, that's
Wow.
400 people listening to the whole thing, and then we've
I
got
listened to it for 397 hours.
and you're just
I'm
judging
just kidding.
yourself the whole time. And we're also on Spotify, so new
Mhm.
channel.
Yep.
We've got 8 followers, and
Yeah.
there's like 40 watch time
Yeah.
hours. So there's people that are just hearing it that
Mm.
aren't following, and so it's pretty cool to see it grow and hear the feedback. And I think that when we're in the conversation and when you're speaking your experiences, it's easy to get in our head and think like, oh, well, that was nonsense.
Yeah.
But like it all is very clairvoyant, and even though you're going back and forth between
Yeah.
topics, it's all connected into this the thread of Omnibuild and your experience building.
And if it's horrible, you can just, like, make a fake AI one for the week. You could just be like, "AI Matt, take this podcast." Yeah, and you could leave a comment
Mm-hmm.
and possibly get some merch.
Yeah, maybe very
You
likely get
never
some
know
merch.
what you might get either. Could be small, could be big, could be cool. Depends on how cool the comment is. Are we close to done?
We've hit our hour. You want to hit anything else before
No,
to
I
sign
wanna
off?
talk about, next week, teenagers working here and growing in the company, and what that's like. Um, and I'll probably listen to the podcast and think of something else to talk about. I actually this I don't think about what I'm gonna say at all. I literally thought about it on the walk to your door out of my truck. And then didn't even know what I was going to talk about. So it is pretty free flow, and I enjoy that part of it, and I hope it keeps working because I enjoy spending time with you and all of y'all. It's kind of cool. And yeah, if you want to hear something about something, you should ask. Beth did, and I talked about it. If I saw a messenger, yeah, I should soon. Um, cool. That's all.
Sweet.
Thanks, y'all. Come back.
See you in the next one.